Thank you for coming to our TAB Communications presentation here. The topic for today is Environmental Communication Strategies for Developing Health Literacy. These are commonly seen sites, especially in industrial north, like our region, Midwest regions. We see these things a lot as well. So you walk by these locations, and do people really talk about them? Or over time, you just like get used to them, it's just there, right? It's the kind of heuristic response we have. Seen it, heard it, done it, I don't think about it anymore. Same thing here. This is even an uglier site on either side. And it's not uncommon to see these type of locations around Northeast. So if this is not your first time watching or attending a webinar from TAB, or you have been to TAB's website, or you have some understanding of what brownfields means, this information here is not new to you. So I will go over it really quickly in terms of the environmental health risk of brownfields. Brownfields resources could be everywhere, honestly, in our environment, but their sources tend to be industrial production, commercial and residential activity where you actually dump certain chemicals, compounds, or products, even plastic, where inappropriately, for example, and goes into landfill, which is commercial and residential activity, transportation and goods movements. Brownfield site risk could be biological, physical, and chemical. And in terms of environmental health risks, this is where we really, as the public, not too well educated about soil and groundwater contamination. So for example, the first image that I show you is a bunch of abandoned oil barrel. If there's a leakage that goes into the soil, and it could go into the groundwater, and even if you don't live really, really close to that site where you see the barrels, you could be using the same groundwater source for your drinking water. Migration of contaminants, if it's sieved through the soil, especially groundwater, that will be an example of contamination that spread, or even through the air, which is when emissions are deposited. Waste dump on site or hazard contribute to risk. So this last item basically summarized the previous three items that I just mentioned. So there are safety risks associated with brownfields. We already kind of mentioned abandoned and derelict structures, open foundation and operating electricity structures, deteriorating infrastructures or equipment due to lack of maintenance, or vandalism, which is not uncommon, illegal or criminal activities associated with abandoned sites. Because it's abandoned site, people who conduct illegal activity might go in there just because people are not paying attention to those sites, and they in turn turn the sites into even more contaminated for one reason or another. Improper waste disposal or dumping, abandoned mines, and mine waste piles. So cross-contamination, we kind of just explained that already. If you think about it, when the brownfield sites are near certain areas, and especially when they're near natural disaster zones, such as flooded areas, vulnerable coastal regions, when there's drought, wildfires, and some other natural hazards areas. So this brings us to today's topic. According to the CDC, personal health literacy is the degree to which individuals have the ability to find, understand, and use information and services to inform health-related decisions and actions for themselves and others. According to NNLM, environmental health literacy refers to when you draw such fields as communication, education, and participatory research. Environmental health, or EHL, can provide a bi-directional evaluation tool that respects local context while also building community and research capacity. So here's a slight distinction between your general health literacy versus environmental health literacy, because environmental health literacy could be very location specific. Certain area, people live in certain regions may have certain type of health or disease concerns that residents of other regions may or may not have. So I don't know whether you have heard of the term cancer alley. It sounds horrible, doesn't it? It actually exists, and CDC actually acknowledges there is a cancer alley in Louisiana. This cancer alley region is quite large, and it has everything to do with the fact that Louisiana is very much heavily populated with oil refineries. So this leads to the functional EHL. What does EHL really do? It helps translate environmental health knowledge into individual and community agency. We could call it efficacy, which is the foundation for empowering individual efficacy and collective efficacy in the community to develop positive social actions and community resilience to create and maintain a sustainable and livable community. So when we translate brownfield science into literacy, we could look at these 3 steps. We, at the beginning, gave you a couple examples of commonly seen sites that are, by definition, brownfields. And then we talked about the sources of brownfield risk, what brownfields what brownfields really mean when it comes to the environmental risk it carries, and it's the environmental health impacts that they present. So we are looking at brownfield science, which is a set of scientific concept that explains the scientific facts about the causes and effects of brownfields in the environment and how they affect individuals in communities. When we transit brownfield science into brownfield literacy, we're looking at science literacy. And what is science literacy? It develops an individual's ability to understand how to use the scientific information about their environment and make informed decisions to protect themselves and their families and their communities. So what is brownfields communication, which is the topic of today? Brownfields communications will refer to brownfields health communication or brownfields health literacy communication, which is risk and health communication, which improves science literacy or brownfields literacy by adapting to individuals' existing literacy level using effective risk and health communication narratives. So what is an individual's existing literacy level? Reading level is 1. and reading level on average in this country is about sixth grade across the board. So that is not very high national literacy level. Of course, that literacy level varies depending on someone's educational level and life experiences as well. So what is risk and health communication narratives? Risk and health communication narratives refer to health psychology and behavior theory driven evidence practices. So communication, what's the big deal? Everyone communicates, but communication effectiveness is a totally different story. This is a classic, what we call SMCR model developed by two AT&T engineers back in 1948. And this has been the model that we're still using today to think about the fundamentals of communication and communication effectiveness. If you think about the communication process, you have a sender, I'm the sender. You have an encoder, in this case, it's actually virtual presentation with my voice and my face on the screen. And that with myself, the channel would be the virtual channel. And then you are the receiver at the end. You have to decode the information from the channel yourself. So what is the noise? The channel noise could include the noise that you created yourself as well, not just the channel itself. For example, the audio is not working very well, the video is not working very well, or my voice simply just not translate very well. Or the fact that we're doing a virtual presentation that is a distraction, it's hard for you to concentrate. So let's look at more examples of this kind of noise. One type of noise that we're very accustomed to these days is misinformation and disinformation. There's a term called infodemic, which is a term coined by the World Health Organization when the COVID-19 pandemic became prevalent around the world. This means the information that we receive in our environment is like a epidemic or pandemic that spread everywhere. And what's in this infodemic? This misinformation, disinformation, and factual information all are seen and heard and disseminated widely through the internet and especially the social media platforms that are not accountable to anything or anyone. So here is a chart of the different characteristics of science denial, which happens because of a result or noise in communication. And that noise is misinformation and disinformation, including even conspiracy theories. So we often see fake experts that would marginalize minority, logical fallacies, leads to red herring, for example, impeccable expectations, cherry picking of information, conspiracy theory, misrepresentation, jumping to conclusions, fake dichotomy, or false equivalency. So there's the rhetoric that is promoting the concept of clean coal. So just take a moment and think about it. Is there something that is clean coal? Does that actually exist? Or is clean coal, if you want to make a comparison, it's almost like benign cancer. Is there such a thing called benign cancer? Think about it. So this is one type of noise that we see and hear every single day. Another type of noise is more psychological, which is the same as if you tell a teenage kid, if you vape all the time, when you're 40 or 50 years old, you might have some kind of neurological problems that would slow down your cognitive ability, and even if scientific research continues, it might be linked to early Alzheimer's or dementia. So the kid is 14 years old, right? It's really hard to tell a kid when you smoke something or you take substance when you're 40 or 50 years old, something will happen to you. Why? That is spatial distance. Not very close. That's the third one here, right? So, and if you say something will happen now, you better prove it, right? Something actually happens now. That's temporal distance, psychologically speaking. Social distance is often something quite common. It happens to somebody else, not me. I'm not the kind of person this kind of things will happen to. And at the bottom is experiential, meaning I have not experienced this. This is more really distance. I have to really try hard to imagine what might happen to me. So when we filter information, these kind of psychological mechanisms will come into play consciously or unconsciously. So in terms of modes of communication, I think you're quite familiar with this. Verbal, nonverbal, written, and visual. Let's not dismiss the importance of nonverbal communication. Nonverbal communication is a speaker or presenter's tone of voice, hand gestures. You see certain political leaders often raise their fists and shout. So a lot of things go into communication to help punctuate the message. Then there's written and visual. So which one or which combination might be most effective? It's really hard to say. It varies with the speaker. It varies with the source of communication, and also the presenter of that information. So let's take a look at here. So how do people learn? Think about it. If you look at this chart, which is developed by a scholar, Edgar Dale. Some people agree with his cone of learning, some people disagree. So I gave you two sources to help you make your own judgment. And you could apply this cone to yourself to see whether it works for you. So if you look at the top part, it's passive learning. And this is based on the Dale's cone of learning. We typically remember 10% of what we read. We remember 20% of what we have heard. We remember 30% of what we have seen. We remember 50% of what we've seen and heard. This is when someone is telling you things, this material for you to read. So you're learning the information passively on your own. So what is active learning? It says 70% of what they say and write, meaning if you say something out and write something out about what you have learned or heard or read, you might remember what other people have said and written 70% of the time. If you actually carry out an activity to put what you have learned, what you have heard, what you have seen into practice, chances are you will remember that lesson 90% of the time. And that's called active learning. When you analyze the information, define it, create an activity, create something for you to remember cognitively, and try to store that into your memory so you can evaluate the information and then recall the information later. Let's look at the next chart here. How do we learn? We learn typically through what we call social learning. We learn information from others, whether it's written, whether it's audio, whether it's video, anything you see in the media, anything you see in social media is social learning because that information comes from someone else. Even as a child, when you were a baby, your parents may dingle, your parents may actually dangle some plastic keys in front of your face and say, keys, keys, keys. And that over time, as a baby, you now associate the sound keys with that object. And that's how we develop our language capacity and ability. Later on, you could say the word keys very quickly. You already processed it. It's already in your memory. You could retrieve it and you could practice it. So this is the process, cognitive and mental process. Attention, first of all, we have to get your attention. This is why advertisers spend $300 billion to get your attention, right? They want you to pay attention to their message. You have to retain that information. Not only that, you can retain it, but can you actually store it in your memory? To store that in your memory, if you did, then it go through a motor reproduction, then you could recall the information. If usually, psychologically speaking, we human beings tend to remember the information we agree with, and don't remember that well in terms of information we don't agree with. Okay, so I need to go a little faster. And here is how we typically process information. We either process information very carefully, that's called central route processing, or we process the information very casually. So apparently, just based on logic, if you process information through central route, think about it carefully, remember it carefully, recall the information carefully, then you'll be able to form an attitude or opinion about something. And when you process information very casually, you could still form an opinion and attitude, except your opinion and attitude was not formed by very well thought consideration. Here is a chart that shows you basically SMCR in order for information to be 100% perfectly remember and drive logical conclusion and allow you to shape your attitude based on facts and logic and so on, you have to have isomorphism between source and receiver when it comes to communication skills, attitude, knowledge, societal system, and culture. So that is impossible. It's impossible to have identical source and receiver outcome coming together. So that is the challenge. However, we do have communication techniques that we can use. So message framing, gain frame, meaning you promote what people will gain if they comply with the information or the behavior recommended versus if they will lose something if they don't do what you ask them to do. So here's some examples. I'm just going to read the one on the left. Think about what will be gained if you save water versus think about what will be lost if you don't save water. So here is Brownfield's image. Before and after, you could clearly see the difference here. And that might be your community, then that would be relatable. That would be relevant. That's your community. Two other images. We have seen the image on the right quite often. Image on the right basically show a bear floating on a piece of ice. The other one shows similar bear, but live on a piece of ice surrounded by waste. This makes it feel quite relatable. And here, transformation, brown fields to green fields. The goal here is to make you feel like, wow, that's the real new setting. It's totally different. Here's a really interesting image where you see drought. The lake is dried out, but if you put a boat and a person on it, it just makes it feel so much more real. Right here, can you actually be experience a new reality? Look, people actually live there. Their cars, the people walking and that on the property on the right. So we're running out of time. So here I'm going to quickly go through additional strategies. On the right is the brownfields. On the left, it's actually brownfields removed, and children are invited to pick up the shovel and build something new. This is our promise to our children, our future generation. If you use that framework, who doesn't want to protect children, right? Whenever in commercials you see children or animals, you immediately get people's attention. Just remember that. Legacy builders are the elders here. We want to respect the elders. They build our community. Somehow, somewhere, someone or some people ruin our communities. We want to respect the elders and the continuity of generations. That is legacy that we want to protect for our own community, a clean community. So another promise strategy would be a promise strategy. We want to build a livable community for our young and old and all the people in between, because this is our community. We care, we love it. We want to keep it clean and livable and sustainable. So here's a model called social ecological model of EHL. Just look at the chart. We want to consider individuals, the relationship between individuals in a community and people of different groups within the community and people between communities, because only if we could think about the smallest unit all the way through the largest unit, we could really deal with the environmental challenges that we face. We cannot miss anyone or dismiss anyone. Here is another challenge that we have to think about, meaning there's a group of people that are decision makers, a group of people that do things that will impact society. That would be the group of people on the left. Governments, corporations, industries, public advocacy groups, such as the Brownfields program at UConn, scientists and engineers, Brownfield programs at UConn, such as Dr. Randy Mendez. In media industry, that put out all the information that you see, misinformation, disinformation, conspiracy theory, and factual information. We are, the audience will be the group that are being influenced. And you look at the people that are influenced, you need to understand who they are so you will know how to talk with them, how to convince them. And these are the different characteristics of the people that are influenced. So I am done here. I'm 1 minute over. I apologize for that. Questions, comments, ideas? I'm afraid that we are a little bit out of time here.
Hey, Karen, this is Roger Solway.
Okay.
From the city of Derby, and we're working with the UConn Municipal Assistance Program.
Okay.
And a big part of the challenge is a communication challenge. We have a area of brownfields in the city, which is a beautiful spot.
Mhm.
And for many years, it's been sort of a bad place to go because the local community has considered it just not a safe place.
Mhm.
But the work that we're doing suggests it could be safe for passive recreation. And we're working with Randy and her team. And I think part of the project is to actually find safe uses of this site.
Mhm.
And then communicating what the findings are and the recommendations are to a community that's been resistant to using it. So it becomes an interesting communication challenge. When we were there just earlier this week looking at the site, there were a lot of young people enjoying it. So there are people using the site.
Mhm.
So, traditionally, the local residents have kind of stayed away from it. So it's an interesting communication challenge for us.
Thank you for sharing that story. I work for Randy and I work with Tab. I am the communications coordinator, or we, if you, we could give you any help in any way to help you with communicating the risks and also keep these kids or outsiders away. Please do let Randy know. And you could find me on UConn website very easily as well.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions, comments, or suggestions? I don't want to take up too much of your time. Like I said, I work for Randy and I work with TAB. I am a training social psychology, so I really I understand health psychology and behavior, and I have communication science background. I teach environmental communication, and we at UConn TAB are more than happy to answer any questions you have. If you need any assistance when it comes to communicating the issues with any number of people, including, for example, the influence group, the government, right, municipal government, industry, any people who influence our lives versus people we can influence, which would be a community resident. Just let us know, let Randy know, and let me know. Anything else that I could cover here? Okay. All right, Randy, should we stop here?